Hello, my name is Juliet Imo. Welcome to the sixth episode of Walking Through Infertility. Today's story is about my very first informed decision and step towards conception. After my foray around the world of cryptic pregnancy, by March 2007, I decided to take steps into actually conceiving. And that meant I had to go through assisted reproductive technology, ART. It wasn't like I think it was a decision that was basically taken for me in a way, um, because it happened very fast. One day I was talking to a doctor, the next day I was being referred to another doctor. The doctor is referring me to do some tests, and then I'm in Harley Fertility Clinic in London, and it was so fast. I wasn't given time to think. It was more like you have to do this, do this, do this, do this. So I just flowed with it. So taking it one step at a time, my friend conceived after a failed IVF. She conceived naturally. So she's one of the lucky ones who conceived after after a procedure for polycystic ovaries. So it was through her I got to know this doctor, this Indian doctor in the UK. So I went to the UK, met up with Dr. Banerjee, who suggested I do some tests. Then he referred me to Dr. Goswami, who used to run a fertility clinic on Harley Street. The name of the fertility clinic was Harley Street Fertility Clinic. So when I went there, he did a scan, told me I had polyps in my uterus, and that he would rather take off the polyps before going through IVF. So before progressing with an IVF procedure, he didn't want to take out the polyps without first reducing them. So he decided to place me on 2 doses of Zoladex. These doses of Zoladex were supposed to help shrink the polyps, and after which he would take them out. According to him, if he's able to reduce the size of the polyps, then the surface area affected won't be much, and that will not cause scarring in my uterus and reduce the possibility of a large scarring, and that will help the baby to implant easily. I agreed. So I was placed on Zoladex. Zoladex is a shot that will temporarily place you in a kind of menopausal phase. So I wouldn't be bleeding. So I took the first shot. He gave me the first shot. I came home back to Nigeria with the second shot. The first shot will last. The second shot will be taken 4 weeks from the first shot. So 4 weeks after, my friend, a medical doctor, helped to give me the second shot. For these 2 months, I was not bleeding, and that threw me into menopause. I had the typical menopause, premenopausal syndromes, heat flushes, dryness, and all that. I had those symptoms. After he gave me a date, I had the first shot in March, had the second shot in April 2007. Then sometime in May 2007, I went back to the UK for my follow-up appointment. He scanned and then told me that I still needed more shots of Zoladex. So for 4 months, I was on Zoladex, and of course on having the menopausal symptoms for those 4 months. It wasn't funny. That was the first time I experienced heat flashes or heat flushes. I don't know which is the correct term, but and I tell you, it wasn't funny. Anyway, but we survived it. Um, so I had the third shot in May. I had a fourth one in June. July, I went back. and then they carried out a hysteroscopy on me, and the term is ball thermal. He didn't cut off the polyps. He melted it using ball thermal method, hot something like a ball to roll on it and melt it off. And that was the procedure he did. I don't understand it very well. Over the years, people have asked me, some doctors that I've met have asked me why. I can't explain. At that time, that was his choice, his method. I didn't know any better. But I trusted the person who referred me to him, and um, we did a ball thermal process. I was supposed to heal and come back in September. So after the procedure in July, I went back to Nigeria and visited after two periods. My period was supposed to come, the first one, then the second one. I think that was in September. The second one started. I went back to the UK and then began my long protocol. 21 days into my that cycle, I began taking shots for down regulation. I After, of course, we had that previously, we had already done all the hormonal assays and all that. My FSH was good, every other thing was fine. It was just the polyps that needed to go off. So I did that regulation for like 21 days, going in to check, they do the blood works and all that. And after that regulation, I was placed on gonal elf, which is a stimulating, hormonal stimulating, follicular stimulating drug. I was started on a 150 IUI, and I took that for less than 10 days. In between, I was coming to check how I was progressing. When I went for the last checkup before the trigger shot, it was discovered that I was hyper stimulating. So I had a risk of ovarian hyperstimulation. But we went ahead to retrieve the eggs. The set of eggs, we retrieved about 26 eggs, 16 embryos fertilized or so. I can't remember again. 16 embryos. I actually have the notebook. I probably should have looked at the notebook before, or the medical records before having this, but I didn't think I needed to go into that much details. So we went on to have embryos, and they were going to monitor the embryos to see if they're developing very well, and then freeze them, because according to them there was no way they were going to transfer those embryos back into my womb when I had the risk of ovarian, when I had OHSS. I didn't find it funny. I tried to explain to them that I have a friend who went through OHSS, but the embryos were transferred. They said it doesn't, that is not allowed in the UK. I said, okay, whatever is best. Some days later, I was called, and information on how my embryos were growing was provided. The doctor wasn't happy with the way my embryos were progressing. I remember he said something like, maybe something is wrong, because even though I had 26 embryos and I wasn't giving high dose of follicular stimulating hormones, but the embryos were not doing very well. Out of the 16 or thereabouts that fertilized, he had just 6 embryos that he thinks were good enough. And those 6 embryos had been frozen at day 2. And I should go home for just take, he gave me some treatment for the OHSS. I should go home. When I feel better, I'll come back for they were going to do frozen embryo transfer. So I went home and I had to deal with the symptoms of the OHSS, which, by the way, are not also funny. I was bloated. My stomach was paining me. I couldn't breathe very well. I was asked to lie down in a sitting position so that I'll be able to breathe, because it was bloated, painful. I was given some shots to manage the pain and to manage the hormonal part of it. So I went through that for 1 or 2 weeks and got better. My period came. After my period came, I had to start the process of frozen embryo transfer. This has now taken us to October, November. I started the process of frozen embryo transfer. The frozen embryo transfer started sometime in October, November, like I said. I had to take some, what's the name of that drug again? I've forgotten the name, but is a like it acts like a down regulation to was placed on that drug. If I remember the name, I will type it in later on in the comment section sometime later. Um, I was placed on that medication. Then eventually I was started up on progesterone, and I was going to the hospital to check my uterine lining. When they felt it was good enough for an embryo transfer, the embryos were thawed. And mind you, the possibility of getting good embryos after the thawing process is also so. Luckily for me, after the thawing process, out of the six embryos that were frozen, they were able to get two viable embryos. These two embryos were later transferred into my womb, and I was given progesterone, and that's in a medication that I can't remember the name right now. I was given cyclogest. So, let me keep the name. I'll put it in the comment section later. I was given this medication as well as the progesterone to be inserting throughout the 2 weeks I was supposed to wait, the dreaded 2 weeks, like it's known in the fertility ward or infertility ward or fertility treatment ward. I waited for those 2 weeks. Now, 10 days into the transfer, I started spotting. Hmm. I was afraid. I thought it was one off, but I was seriously spotting and I felt very bad. I thought everything was, all hopes were gone, all the medical process, the wait that I've started since March of 2007 was all going to be dashed. So I cried, I prayed. I was walking around Beckton area like a mad woman. In the morning, I would trek, walk around from one street to another. It was just my way of keeping sane. On the 13th day, which made it the 14th day after the transfer, I was asked to come over for a blood test to ascertain if um, if the if I was pregnant. Meanwhile, for the past 3 days, I've been spotting, and for me, I thought all hopes were gone until I went for the blood work. They told me they would call me back in 2 hours. After 2 hours, I when I was coming back from the blood test, I stopped at Greg's and decided to do some comfort. I loved cheese and onion pies. So I bought lots of cheese and onion pies to cry my way through the news when it eventually came. And I was stuffing myself with cheese and onion pies just to prepare myself for the bad news. Because as far as I was concerned, that procedure didn't result into a pregnancy. Since I was spotting, and I was still spotting as at when I went for the test. And when I got to the hospital, I told them. They said they would not know until after the test. They were so that I should just keep on with my medication. I shouldn't stop taking my medication. I said okay. But as far as I was concerned, it was all over. There was nothing else to say about it. So 2 hours later, I got a call from one of the nurses. She said, Miss Juliet. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, how are you? I said, I'm good. She said, and I was still chewing my pie. I said, I'm good. She said, are you seated? I said, yes, I'm sitting because I thought it was going to be a negative thing. She said, are you seated? I said, yes, I'm seated. I said, in my heart. And I said, well, congratulations, you're pregnant. I said, sorry, what did you say? She said, I said, congratulations, you're pregnant. I said, but I'm sporting. She said, yes, it's okay. Sometimes some people are that way when they get pregnant, but just take it easy, continue on your medication. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Hmm. Wow. I knelt down. I praised God. I thanked God. I rolled on the floor. I was so grateful. I was pregnant, finally pregnant. 5 years And 10 months after our wedding, I was pregnant. To the glory of God. Hmm. After I thank God, my husband had gone back to Nigeria once after the whole frozen embryo bit. After the embryos were frozen, he went back to Nigeria. So I called him, I shared the good news with him, and of course, he was very happy. And then I waited for my brother in law, who I was staying at his home, to come back. I shared the good news. We were all excited and grateful to God. So that began. But then I didn't stop sporting, but I didn't let it worry me again. I just said, okay, since it's normal. And then I also found out from fertility friends and a lot of the fertility message boards that some women experience that until even as far as their 12 weeks. So I kind of calmed myself down and um, continued taking my medication and basically taking it easy. When I was about 8 weeks, 6 weeks, not 8 weeks, I went back to the hospital. We did a scan and I saw the dot, the tiny dot on the screen showing me the baby and the heartbeat. So it was finally confirmed I was pregnant and the pregnancy was progressing. I stayed on the UK until January when I was 8 weeks gone. I had my medication for 12 weeks and I returned back to Nigeria. I'm pregnant. The pregnancy continued to grow and we're all doing well. Everything was going well until drama started. Thank you very much for joining me today and being a part of my story. I will continue this next week. My story, how my pregnancy progressed, and what happened, how we progress and what happened to the pregnancy. Join me next week as we continue the story. Thank you very much. Like I said, this is a story of my struggles with infertility. And if you think you know anybody who could learn from this, please share this link with them. They might just benefit from it. Thank you very much and have a lovely day. Bye.